Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason's engineering the broadcast, and I'm Vincent Finelli. We're broadcasting from the corrupt state of Missouri at the moment. And today we're going to be talking about lots of things with Rich Scheben, economics. We're going to be talking about the burning down of America, the Second American Revolution combined with the Second American Civil War, as we call it. I don't think other broadcasters have figured it out yet, but hopefully soon they will. And I challenge all of our broadcasters in the alternative media, the unbiased media, to call it like it is and warn America as to what's happening. Rich Scheben's with us in Montana. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vince. How are you doing this morning? No, I did not mention cars. I swear to God.
Let me get my headphones checked. Well, I got to tell you, Rich, I've been thinking about all these things that are happening in the United States of America, and the country is burning down. There's just no question about it. And I blame it, a lot of the blame, on Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Mr. Frey, because he didn't arrest the police who were on camera, the 4 cops who murdered George Floyd, caused a domino effect across the world. And the damage that man has done is unbelievable. Now, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, did he do it all? No. This has been brewing for years, decades. But he's the guy. He's the guy who could have prevented the damage. But because of his greed, because of his own reasons, because he is interested in murder, and supports murder, he's twisted, in my opinion. And he did not stop it. And when I say he supports murder, he awards honor to baby killers. That's what he does as a mayor. He supports abortion. He supports gay rights, twisted things. And of course, why would this be any different? Letting the country burn down, followed by the world burning down. Why would he do anything to stop it? He is so greedy. It's disgusting. Jason is preparing a clip for us. I wanted to play it. It wasn't quite ready.
Vince, pardon the interruption. You wanted me to actually interrupt you this morning because you had so many clips when we talked last night. You wanted to hold all calls today.
Yeah, that's right. Class, we're not going to be taking any calls, not one. I'm sorry for that. But Rich and I have a lot of things to say, so many things to talk about that we're not going to have time for anything else. But I do have some clips. So one of the things that's really interesting is that in New York City, the police, about 600 of them, Rich Scheben, have decided that they are either quitting, retiring, or finding out what is necessary to leave because they feel that they've been left alone. They've been abandoned. Can you imagine that? The police feel abandoned after bludgeoning protesters. So New York City Police Department feels abandoned by everyone, this is Daily Mail, as their 36,000 officers come under greater scrutiny amid the Black Lives Matter protests with continuing calls to defund the New York Police Department. Now, of course, I'm all for it. I'm all for defunding the police departments all over the country. And there's some thoughts that, well, oh boy, it'd be Mad Max. it would be murder and mayhem and rape and all that. And that may happen. Some of that may happen. But you know what? Where we live. And the population isn't very dense here, but that's for sure. But we don't have a police department. The only police that are around here are 20 miles away. And it takes about an hour and a half or more for them to show up. If they decide to show up at all. And by the way, the police have no obligation, according to the Supreme Court, to protect any individual, nor any individual's property. I'm not really sure what they're for, but, other than to plunder, I'm not sure what they're for. Because if they take an oath to protect and serve and swear to defend the Constitution, and they don't, what do we need them for? Rich Scheben, I'm sure you have some comments.
Oh, yeah. Can I have the next 4 hours of airtime, please?
Please.
First of all, the problem is not just the police. And I'm going to cite a few articles here, and then I'm going to make some comments before the break, okay? And it's going to seem like I'm sticking up for the police, and in some ways I am, because there's moderation, there's two sides to every story, and it's often you have to wait for the story to come to fruition before you get a lot more details, because the powers that be, the MSM, they want anarchy. And speaking of anarchy, there was a video out all over the internet this past week from 1965, and they talk about the playbook, they talk about the flow chart, the blueprint, the template for destruction regarding communism. And basically they talk about how they need to have a lot of basically ass kissers, yes men, followers, traitors, cowards, people who are interested in feathering their own nest over the country and dismissing the rule of law. And this is why you always hear me talking about practice what you preach laws, but you have the wealthiest people in the world and in the country doing divide and conquer strategies in order to manipulate, like the planned pandemic agenda and rioting. I'm not saying the pandemic, COVID-19, isn't real. I'm saying the agenda that I've gone over, 25 points of this over the last couple of months, is absolutely real. And this is why President Trump has to declassify everything. We need laws of excess. If we don't have laws of excess, President Trump, even if you do good things in office, once you're out, the super wealthy billionaires and trillionaires and multimillionaires who sign up for depopulation and all these agendas, they're going to take control back again. I guarantee you, if you have laws of excess in the books and the people decide how much net worth someone can have, this isn't a communist regime, because the most nefarious people have addictions to power, money, and control. They're the psychopaths, okay? They're the sociopaths. They have addictions, not just to power, money, and control, but they also they're so weak-minded that these people need to be liked. You can pick them out of a crowd real easy, and basically they're taking control of the narrative in every way. I want to mention a few articles here. Now, for those of you who have police officers in your family, I want you to pay attention to these articles I'm about to mention. First, arrested New York City looters immediately released, none go to jail. St. Louis releases dozens of suspects arrested during violent protests. Next article. Nearly all rioters freed from jail in D.C. Next article. New York City arsonist to be instantly freed from jail. Next article. New York City judge releases tourist female lawyer who firebombed police. Next article. De Blasio vows to cut New York City Police Department funding while violent crime soars. Next article. Sanctuary in New York City protected illegal gang member wanted for murder. Now, what's the point of me mentioning these articles and the context? I think it's pretty obvious for 99% of the people who listen to this show, because they read and they research and they go by objective facts and not by subjective emotional opinions. What we've done is we've given free lunch to the elite. Think about if you're a police officer right now. Now, what happened to George Floyd should not happen. But believe it or not, Minneapolis police had that that technique of stomping on someone's neck in their protocol. It's not right. Nothing's right. I mean, I have so much data here from the FBI. Like, there's one thing that's been going around the internet, murder of blacks and whites in the U.S. in 2013. And whites killed by blacks is 9.83%. Blacks killed by blacks is 53.94%, and blacks killed by whites is 0.77%. You know, we really have to put things in perspective, folks. And this is one of the reasons why Candace Owens and Burgess Owens and a lot of are talking about certain things. Let me mention a few more articles here and a few more statistics. We have to put things in perspective. People await. One of the main reasons for these riots is that the elite, okay, which are basically white, wealthy liberals, they want everybody on food stamps, on some type of government institution or little bit of beer money. They want people high on drugs. They want people killing each other and joining gangs. They don't want people being self-sufficient and building skill sets. So the liberal wealthy class have really enslaved not just the blacks, but everybody. I mean, the Democrat Party, we got to go back in history, and you got to listen to some really good people, like Carol Swain. She lectures specifically and accurately about our history, and she's a black lady. You know, Democrat Senator Byrd, he was a high member in the KKK. LBJ said, I'll have these N-words, and the N-word is not Negro, and I'm not going to say that N-word because everybody knows what it is, voting Democrat for the next couple hundred years. The Democrat Party started the KKK. They started Antifa. They started Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger, she didn't even hide it. It was in on video and audio. She wanted, and the people and the money behind her wanted to control the black population. That's why Planned Parenthood was like in 85% of black neighborhoods. Well, the Democrats also voted against civil rights acts. They were pro-slavery. So now we're in a situation where we're allowing murder, rape, mayhem, despair, suicides, drugs, destruction, no rule of law, no restitution for the people who are actually the victims of all this. And so there's so much for this bad virus, all this rioting in all these blue states where 3/4 of the so-called deaths come from, even though they had gunshot wounds or they had heart attacks or cancer or car accidents, they were still thrown in the COVID-19 category. What's happening, folks, is that people are waking up. I mean, to allow the murder, rape, and mayhem that's going on and to get rid of the police that is there to protect us, because we do have good police. The Democrats need black votes. Rasmussen poll shows 40% of black voters approve of Trump. I'll go into more detail after the break. Thank you for being here today, folks.
Rich Scheben's with us, and we're going to play a clip after the bottom of the hour break. So, Rich, please continue.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it. The reason why I mentioned those articles, folks, and it's so disturbing to me that I have to shortcut every message because I never have enough time with all the information I have. But think about all these blue cities and states that are allowing criminals to go free after the police arrest them. Is it possible that maybe these police are just saying, hey, we're hung out to dry, the system is unsustainable, it's too corrupt? I mean, look at the New York City cops. How many of those knew about Anthony Weiner's laptop? And how many of those police actually came forward? See, when you put your own self-interest before the rule of law and the the police start saying, WTF, what's the sense? The whole system. And so when you arrest the bad people, and guess what happens in history? Look at the Bolshevik Revolution, look at the Nazi brown shirts. Basically, the powers that be use these behaviors as a litmus test. So the good cops left who basically had certain good behaviors, cared about the rule of law, whatever their Constitution or Bill of Rights or whatever they had, those people followed it. And then they threw up their hand and they said, okay, we're leaving, which I'm seeing a lot of police do around the country, especially in the blue states and cities. Well, guess what happens when that happens? The bad guys stay. Now, I'm not saying all the bad guys stay, but the proportion of good to bad usually goes in those directions. Now, let me share 3 articles with you real quick. Chicago police close exit ramps to protect wealthier northern suburbs from looting. Next article. The Fed just unleashed $1 trillion in new debt. Companies took the money and spent it on dividends while firing millions of people. And who owns the dividends, folks? The top 7 to 10% own the great majority of them. Next article. Ted Cruz teaches Senate masterclass on Obama spying. Total annihilation. Phenomenal stuff. What do those 3 articles have in common? It means that the powers that be are protecting the funders, the wealthiest of the wealthiest, while they're letting us poison ourselves against ourselves. What is happening here, folks, is the people at the top of the most corrupt hierarchy in the world, which is the globalists, like the Ted Cruz article says. The reason why they're doing this is because they don't want a lot of this information to come out. They realize that the people are waking up, and the big corporations, which are funding the fascist riots to eliminate small business competition, we're basically just bailing out the rich. The media's lying, all this COVID-19, but yet we have shoulder-to-shoulder protests where we would have normally had, according to the CDC and Fauci and all these other people at the top and the NIH, we should have millions of cases right now. Now, again, I'm not saying it's real. It's not real, pardon me. I'm just saying that the agenda behind this virus is a lot more real than anything out there. Look at the chain reaction. Look at the forced austerity, not representing the little guy, the crashing of the economy, the delegitimization of work, elimination of free markets. Don't use cash. We've got to use a centralized crypto. Stop patriotic, peaceful assembly. You know, big tech controls more of everything with the UN, the WHO, Hollywood, Soros, and Gates putting more funding into it with our tax dollars. Making people submissive, breaking their will with social distancing and so much more, hiding Joe Biden behind a virtual reality shield, eliminating the legitimacy of voting. So we got to have a rigged system, voted by mail. Increased domestic violence, depression, division, chaos, infighting. Eliminating freedom and liberty in the Constitution, food shortages, lack of clean water and nutritious foods. Depopulation, forced vaccines, immunity passports, 5G going up everywhere, which is destroying our immunity system. Folks, these are divide and conquer strategies that are planned. As long as we stick up for our group, hyphen, and pronoun, it will continue. We'll be right back.
Okay, so Jason has prepared a clip that I'd like to play to say thank you, a way of saying thank you to Rich Scheben for his continuous efforts to educate us about the dangers of double standards, political correctness, group identity politics, favoritism, crony capitalism, insider favoritism, manipulated markets, bribes, payoffs, lying corporations, lying governments, and the like. In 1971, there was a television show. It's called All in the Family. It ran for 9 seasons from 1971 through 1979, 49 years ago. It was about a working-class family. Archie Bunker was the head of the family, his wife Edith, their married daughter, and her husband. To save money, the married daughter and her husband lived in the same house with Archie and Edith Bunker. So this was a family that worked hard, but had opinions about how things were. And so there are several versions of this song, and I'm going to read you some of the lyrics, because when it was played on television, it was before every one of these broadcast episodes, it was difficult to difficult to understand what the lyrics were. And I believe intentional. Edith Bunker, who was Gene Stapleton in real life, would screech some of the lyrics. Now, here are some of the lines that I'd like you to pay attention to when you hear the clip that we're going to play. It starts out with boy the way Glenn Miller played, meaning, wow, the way Glenn Miller played. Now, Glenn Miller was a band leader, a fabulous band leader. Songs that made the hit parade. Guys like me, we had it made. Those were the days. Didn't need no welfare state. Everybody pulled his weight. Gee, our old LaSalle ran great. Now, what's a LaSalle? Well, a LaSalle is an automobile. It was in production from 1927 through 1940. It was a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble, and a little bit lower in price than the Cadillac, but it was made by Cadillac under General Motors. So it was a first class, top of the line car. Okay. Gee, our old LaSalle ran great. Those were the days. And you knew where you were then. Girls were girls and men were men. $50 paid the rent. Freaks were in a circus tent. Those were the days. Take a little Sunday spin. Go to watch the Dodgers win. Have yourself a dandy day. That'll cost you under a fin. A fin was $5. Hair was short and skirts were long. Kate Smith really sold a song. I don't know just what went wrong. Those were the days. Jason, could you play that? There you have it. So that was the opening song of All in the Family. And if you think about it, we really went wrong in 49 years. We had cars that ran great that you could tune up yourself. Girls were girls and men were men. $50 paid the rent. Freaks were in a circus tent. And you could have a dandy day that would cost you under a fin, under $5. We didn't need a welfare state. Everybody pulled his weight. Guys like me, we had it made. There's another version, guys like us, we had it made. And we used to love to listen to the hit parade. The hit parade was what song was the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, bestseller of that week? That was the hit parade. We used to love to listen to what was new on the radio. And we've all gone our separate ways, scattered like rats deserting a ship when it's sinking because of technology. We don't need to talk to people. We don't need to meet people. We don't need to see people. We've got smartphones. There was no tracking the way there is today. There was no inflation like we have today. With President Trump's administration, with these free handouts, the welfare state, I am seeing prices rise, in just a few weeks after he released this helicopter money to every man, woman, and child in the United States, $1,200. If you look on the internet and you want to buy something good, a good quality vintage product, kind of like a Revere coffee pot, a percolator, top of the line, plain Jane, but top of the line in quality, a Cadillac, if you will. That's what we used to call top of the line. It's a Cadillac of percolators in terms of quality, durability, etc. Well, I used to be able to buy them for about $25 or $30 on eBay. Not anymore. Now they're $75 to $100 for the same darn thing that was made 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Everything that I want to buy has almost doubled, if not doubled or more, because of the inflation. Rich is going to be talking about the economy, but let me be very clear about this. The reason that we had this opulence, this decadence, this outrageous, disgusting greed in the United States, the way people were able to afford this was because we were the reserve currency of the world. Every other country had to earn money, not us. We could print it and lend it to them. And that's what we did. We created it out of thin air, and we lent it out. And they had to work and sweat to pay it back. Not us. We'd make more. Well, it's over, in my opinion. And we are now going to pay the price. And the collapse, the fix is in. We are done. Toast cooked. It's just a question of how long will it take. And we're watching it right now. This is like the Weimar Republic, where it took a wheelbarrow full of money, currency, paper currency, in Germany, around the era of the First World War, just after the First World War, to buy a loaf of bread. It would take a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread. And if you had a wheelbarrow, you could buy a city block. No kidding. No exaggeration. Rich Scheben, any comments?
Well, this is why we got to go back to the basics that we talk about so often: food, water, shelter, energy. You know, especially with the lack of nutrients and the lack of vitamins that we're getting hold of. We have, we're being mechanically, chemically, biologically destroyed with glyphosate in all of our old pastures. We've learned and lost the 19th century skill sets, and we need to dovetail them with 21st century technology. We have fluoride, chlorine, and 200 other chemicals and pharmaceutical drugs and poisons and estrogens and municipal water. We have to get back to the basics. We have to start, growing our own food, getting our own meat and fish, creating our own shelter, and being debt free, and maybe even going off grid like we do, and getting rid of the smart meters and creating our own power. And I've said this so many times on the air. Remember, Democrat politicians like the mayor of L.A. said, "You don't do what I say, I'll shut off your water and power." That's tyrannical dictatorships. That's tyranny, okay? That's fascism. And they're making it very clear they don't want you to be self-sufficient. They want depopulation. I've talked about all this agenda that is very much in the foreground now, and we have to realize the whole system is made for the elite to basically siphon these government interventions and confiscation, distribution of wealth from the little guy to the big guys, and they're disguising it with all these terms, racist and humanitarian and Agenda 21, Agenda 30, global warming, climate change, group identity politics. And that's one of the reasons why over the years I've read so many excerpts from Marx, Alinsky, Cloward and Piven, the Frankfurt School, the Communist Manifesto, to show how we're so drunk on the Kool-Aid of political correctness and the template that they're using. I mean, here's a couple articles right here, folks. Rosenstein, we all know who he is, admits no Russian collusion evidence existed to justify Mueller witch hunt. Next article. Rosenstein says, in quotes, "I should not have signed the FISA warrant." Next article. Shocking evidence shows coordinated effort to orchestrate an uprising inside the United States. Connecting these dots is not very hard to do. What do these 30 cities have in common? They talk about all the Democrat-run blue cities that are conducting and enhancing and fomenting hate and riots. Okay, this has nothing to do with politics or race. This is an excuse because people are waking up. Just like I said about the Rasmussen poll, 40% of black voters approve of Trump. People are waking up. Black congressional candidate and former NFL player Burgess Owens calls white privilege a racist term. Black conservatives reject media's racism and victimhood narratives. This Twitter just erupted when the Democrats did this anti-police stunt dressed in African garb, and the black community said, don't treat Africans like kids. People are waking up to the scams and the shams and seeing how the money is going to the highest bidder, to the people who who have this addiction to power, money, and control. You know, we're in a situation that the people aren't getting anything. You know, we make a cake, it goes into the oven, and the little people, the bottom 93%, get a cupcake to divide amongst ourselves. The whole system is corrupt, broken, and unsustainable. Remember Hank Paulson in 2008 feathering his own nest by $200 million? How about today's Deputy Secretary Justin Vucinich? Still has ties to his family's investment firm, which is a major beneficiary of the Treasury's bailout actions.
All right, we'll be right back with Rich
bonds,
Scheben.
junk bonds, ETFs, banks, high leverage loans, all malinvestment.
Rich Scheben's with us. And yesterday I sent this link to Rich Scheben, and we talked about it on the phone. There are not many things that have made me as angry as this particular video. Now, we can't play the video on the radio, but we can play the audio. And here's what it is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it before we play the video, then I'll tell you a little bit more about it after. So here's the results of people coming to a parking lot and finding that all the tires of every car in the parking lot have been flattened on purpose. They've been spiked. They have been spiked. Not just one tire per car, every single tire on every single car in Minneapolis, Minnesota, on private property on a K-Mart parking lot. Okay? This happened on Monday. Jason, can you please play this very short clip?
I just got back to my vehicle, parked in a lot, and the police slashed 1, 2, 3, 4 of my tires. And they've also slashed every other car that's parked in this lot's tires. Every car that's parked here has their tires slashed. Every single car. Unbelievable. I can't get home now.
They're slicing those guys' tires.
Okay, so what you heard was from the Star Tribune, mainstream media. And so there was a man from Los Angeles. I assume he somehow got to Minneapolis, and he was doing a documentary. And he had a rental car, and all 4 of his tires were slashed. And I watched the video of these people in uniforms, law enforcement types, literally taking a tool made just for this, a special purpose tool that you can hold in your hand, like if you were going to take a screwdriver and pound it into the ground. Okay, kind of like that. You hold it by the handle, and you just go up to a tire and you slam it through the sidewall. And this tool is so sharp. I researched this tool. This tool you can carry in your pocket, like a retractable pen or a Sharpie marker. You take the cap off, and it has the equivalent of a larger diameter than a hypodermic needle, but it's a bologna sliced needle with a hole in it. So it will literally take out a chunk of rubber, and you cannot repair these tires. Once the sidewall is damaged, it is not safe to repair these tires. No quality tire shop will repair a tire that has a hole in the side. And what these police did, they're in uniforms. They went up to these tires and boom, 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 like 1, 2, 3. One tire, there's a video of one of these uniformed thugs putting between 18 and 20 holes in one sidewall tire. One hole's not enough. So what does it cost for the average tire to be replaced in the United States? Right now, I just did the research, up to the minute research, $100 for the average car tire. Ford car tires would be $400. That's without the towing. Because how do you get the vehicle to where you can have the tires replaced? And what tire shop has, let's say, 400 tires of all the sizes necessary to replace all the tires that have been destroyed on purpose with intent by the police. So the average price is $100 for a car tire, one tire. That's $400 plus towing. So let's say $600 there. $150 per tire for an SUV. That's $600 plus, let's say, $200 towing. $800 there. And for a pickup truck, $200 a piece, $800 for the tires, $200 for the towing, $1,000. Now, who's responsible? Mayor Jacob Frey, because it's happening in his city with his blessing. These police went out there with these tools designed to do this job, to destroy tires, to destroy personal property. That's what they did. I see the phone is ringing. Please, we're not taking calls today. I'm sorry about that. So if you want to do this, just go to officers/tires. Type that in. See what you find. See if you find the same kind of video. This made my blood boil. Now, this article goes on to say, images from South Washington Avenue at Interstate 35W also showed tires with knives deflating the tires of two unoccupied cars with repeated jabs on May 31st. Okay. State patrol troopers strategically deflated tires in order to stop behaviors such as vehicles driving dangerously at high speeds around protesters and law enforcement. These vehicles were parked. Nobody was in them. Who pays for that damage? Are you going to allow the cities near you to destroy your cars and your tires? Are you going to do that? I'm livid. And fortunately, we have a break, and I can let my blood pressure come down 30, 40, 50 points. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. We're watching America burn. And hate and destruction is being fomented by many sides, many people. And I mentioned at the end of previous hour, about how the police have intentionally destroyed tires, maliciously vandalized personal property of we the people. It's an outrage. My blood was boiling yesterday when I was telling Rich Scheben about this, and it still is. And, well, I wouldn't want to think about what I would do if I saw a bunch of cops popping tires and my tires were being popped maliciously because I parked at a K-Mart parking lot to join a protest. Really? Really? So the police are fomenting hate. Others are fomenting hate. There's plenty of hate to go around. Donald Trump, President Trump, looks at what we need to do, and he thinks more police is the answer. And he's the guy that said he was just doing an inspection on the bunker in the White House. Well, according to the news, that's not true. Now, who's telling the truth? I don't know. I don't know if President Trump is telling the truth or whether Attorney General Bill Barr is telling the truth. Because Attorney General Bill Barr says President Trump was rushed to the bunker at the height of the protest outside the White House, despite the president claiming it was just an inspection. The Attorney General told Fox News things were so bad that the Secret Service recommended taking President Trump to the bunker under the White House. The president responds it was just merely an inspection. So what the heck was it? I don't know. But here's what I do know. Nothing out of the White House can be believed. Nothing out of any politician can be believed. Nothing out of the government can be believed. Nothing out of the media can be believed. Nothing can be believed. And yet, we're supposed to think everything's okay. We're supposed to think that the market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is a representation of the health of the economy. Nonsense. It's manipulated. We can't pay back the debt. It's an impossibility. It's impossible. The current administration in the United States has shut down the economy, and it's not coming back, in my opinion. There's no way it can come back. There's about 30,000 stores that are not coming back. 30,000. Malls. Who's going to go to a mall? Once you lose the anchor like Sears or J.C. Penney or, one of these big stores that is the anchor, why people go to the mall, and while they're there, they look at other little, mom and pop shops. Once the anchor goes under, the whole mall goes under. It's happening all across the United States. People aren't going to the mall anymore. They've been forbidden to go to the mall. Masks on, masks off. You gotta have a mask? No, you don't have to have a mask. Where do you get the mask? Our government has done this. I believe there was a race to build the biggest, baddest biological weapon to kill every man, woman, and child on the planet. I believe our government was involved in it. I believe the Chinese were involved in it. And it just so happens that the Chinese let it loose, either by accident or by purpose. It's working great. It's destroyed the United States economy. Now, what do we do about it? Well, that's easy. We stop buying everything made in China. Everything. Remember, they're the guys that did this. How can you forget this? They're the ones who have killed your mother, father, sister, brother, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, friend, neighbor, even the people you hate. I'm livid. I am absolutely livid. And the people who are supposed to protect us, they're slashing our tires. They're beating us with clubs. They're armed to the teeth with weapons of war. They tear gassed people. And then they said they didn't. President Trump was going to give a photo op, and people videoed the tear gassing of the streets to get everybody out of the way so President Trump can hold a Bible. Praise the Lord. And the White House denies, no, we didn't, nobody got tear gassed. Not true. Then they had to walk that back. It's ridiculous. President Trump, I suggest that you act presidential. Act like a president. Act like a leader. Show leadership. But don't beat us into submission, because it'll come back and bite you. People have had it. How would you like it if your son was beaten by the police? How would you like it if your tires were slashed by the police? I think it's a mistake, President Trump, to stand in solidarity with the police who are fomenting hate. Take a page out of Camden, New Jersey's playbook. They got rid of police in favor of working with the community. That's their word, community. I would say village. And it's working. We didn't always have police. In our little hamlet here in Missouri, there's no cops. None, not one. And it's working great. Someone is a thief. Everybody knows. Everybody shuns that guy until he moves out. That's how it works. Works fine. And if he keeps doing burglaries and robberies, the punishment will be severe by the village. That's how it works. That's the way it was in the West. I don't get it. I really don't get what's wrong with people. And to quote Joey, what's the matter with you? Well, he and I both say that. We look at people, what's the matter with them? What's the matter with cops? How do you go home at night and say, oh, I had a great night, honey. Boy, we just wiped out every tire in the parking lot. Gosh. Let's say there were 50 cars. Let's say an average of $600 worth of damage to each car. It's $30,000. Honey, we done great tonight. We just did $30,000 worth of tire destruction. I can't wait to go out tomorrow and do it again. Really? This is sick. Rich Scheben?
Well, you talked about a lot of things here, so you're going to have to give me a couple segments at least to comment on what you said. You talked about China, you talked about COVID-19, you talked about fraud, you talked about... So I pulled out 5 articles while I was that I already had out to comment on what you just said. Disney goes woke for Black Lives Matter, but kowtows to China's racism and concentration camps. See how this works, folks? Former MIC chief.
One question,
COVID was
Rich.
made
What
in a
is
Chinese
woke?
lab. I've seen the evidence.
What is...
This is... Are you chiming in,
Rich? What is woke? What does woke mean?
Woke is a term.
I'm just asking the question. You said Disney goes woke.
Yeah. Woke is a term that they use for left Democrat...
What's it mean?
I'm trying to tell you. Woke is a term that typically the so-called fascist left Democrat states use as a synonym to make people realize what the truth is, but really it's more for their agenda and their personal benefit and manufacturing their perception of self-importance and self-preservation in a nutshell. Next article, LH Lab Corp, again involved in massive DNA and paternity fraud. So just think of how many thousands or millions of fathers are out there who aren't really fathers of those children. Next article, Dr. Fauci, hero, liar, or sociopath. Next article, wealthy and mad rush to leave San Francisco. Well, I got news for you, folks. Vincent and I have been talking about this for years. There's a mad rush out of every blue city and state right now to go to rural areas, to relearn the old 19th century skills and dovetail them with 21st century technology. Because what's happening is certain people are being bribed, or certain people are being blackmailed. You know, that's why I mentioned a few weeks ago about Lavoy Finicum. I saw his daughter on the internet, and she was talking about how he was shot by the FBI and evidence was withheld. And this Judge Sullivan is starting a new precedent called sovereign immunity doctrines. So as long as we continue to have different rules, laws, and accountability based on what group you're in, as long as the rule of law can be bought and paid for, one for the aristocracy, one for the serfs, one if you're a Democrat, one if you're a Republican. And then it's all broken down based on gender you identify, shade of skin pigmentation, sexual orientation, religion, et cetera, et cetera. We can't go ahead if we allow the elite to carry the narrative over the truth, we will never succeed as a country. We're going down. Now, I've seen videos of, I'm going to comment now, Vince, on what you said about the police or somebody in uniform stabbing tires. Those people should be arrested. There must be an agenda behind it. Because I've seen videos where white Antifa are spray painting kill blacks on walls. I've seen videos where, the KKK and Black Lives Matter coming out of the same bus. You know, it's basically the powers that be are creating a problem and manufacturing a solution with agendas behind it, most coming out of so-called blue states. And that's where the violence is coming from. So when you talk about when police are basically popping tires, could this be, like I discussed earlier, could this be an audition, a litmus test for an initiation for future brown shirts? Because maybe these people are more interested in money than the public. Maybe those people have been bought and paid for. Maybe those people have certain really bad things caught on tape like pedophilia, and they have to go along with the agenda. What about all these bricks that were laid in blue cities around the country? I need information The fact that that video is out and there isn't more information about it, to me, is kind of a red flag. We need truth. We need declassification. And I'll talk about the declassifications that need to happen again after the break.
Rich Scheben with us. Rich, quick question before you continue. Are you seeing prices escalating as I am?
Well, absolutely. Like I've mentioned many, many times before with many, many, many specific examples. We're in a deflationary, stagflationary environment, but as they continue to print money, the term drunken sailor in a bar doesn't even hold water anymore, no pun intended. As they continue to print and other countries doubt our reserve currency status, and they see the bottom 93% see the delegitimization of work, the bottom 93% of people getting their wealth transferred to the elite, the things in need, like food, is going through the roof. So everything is phony. I think I've talked about, I think I've given lectures on that, from the economy to phony earnings, phony caring, phony benevolence, phony philanthropy, phony nobility, equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity. Even our medical system now. How they're coding diagnosis, diplomacy. It's pretty obvious that the multimillionaires, it's more of an aristocracy, serfdom paradigm than left-right. And this is why I've been calling for practice what you preach laws for so long. But the elite don't want that. They'd rather have forced vaccines and big tech on us and basically have contact tracing and know every move we make and possibly set us up for crimes, and along with eugenics, depopulation, genocide. What we've done is we've allowed the delegitimization of work and jobs, and what it's going to do is hyperinflate the money and delegitimize commerce, and the little guy is going to be stuck with no voice. See, when you lower the bars, the standards, and expectations for a job, where hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications mean less, not only are you doubting your value as a group, but you're literally conceding to being insulted, degraded, and disrespected, because they're disrespecting your work ethic, ability, and intelligence. Rewarding mediocrity destroys a country. But see, when you connect the dots, you see the same people who demanding to lower the bars of standards and expectations for a job are also demanding no protection, rights, or restitution under the rule of law. So you've given runaway power with no checks and balances to the most corrupt industries and companies and governments in our country and the world. And then you enable and protect the most corrupt countries with liability immunity. So when you destroy capitalism, you enforce fraud, illegitimacy, and fascism. That's how wealth and inequality builds, So that's why you always hear me saying, stop insulting your group, your hyphen, and your pronoun. We have to start being Americans, or else everybody is going to be on food stamps and welfare of some sort. And the government workers in big corporate America are going to get all the monetary benefits. In other words, they're getting free lunch and wealth redistribution, tax loopholes, setting precedents, using divide and conquer strategies. And basically, there's a few people in the middle who are selling out to the highest bidder. And you can see how they're manufacturing perception of self-importance and self-preservation. This is why I talk about hypocrisy, double standards, and brainwashing. We're not connecting the dots because the people, we're being used as pawns. We don't have representation. Okay, the little people doesn't have it. In fact, what we have is more divide and conquer strategies against us. On top of it, we're being killed biologically, chemically, technologically, psychologically. We're being neutered. We're allowing the elite to poison us against ourselves. This is all a connection. So this is why you always hear me say, well, it's not one person's fault. It's not one group's fault. It's a whole agenda. And this is why I've been asking President Trump for the rule of law, not to go to the highest bidder. We need Epstein declassification and all the people around it. I mean, they can't even get Prince Andrew out here because the wealthy are protecting their own. We need Clinton Foundation Uranium One declassification, FISA warrants, geoengineering weather modification tools, billions of cash sent to Iran, 9/11, alternative energies. All these things need to be declassified for the people, or else the people will never believe anything the elite ever say again.
Rich Scheben's with us live in Montana. Rich, I was thinking about how do we sum this up in just a couple of words? And you know what it is? It's really a confidence crisis that we have in the United States of America. We have no confidence in the government, whether it be the local, city, county, state, or federal government. We have no confidence. We have no confidence in corporations doing the right things. We have no confidence in our alleged representatives doing the right thing. How is it possible that we could have, Senator Blunt from Missouri siding with Monsanto to protect Monsanto from lawsuits because its products kill people and give them cancer? So we have government alleged representatives taking payments to protect corporations who work against us. We have the government saying, you all don't need to know what's in your food. Heck, these corporations know best. They know which food coloring is best for you. They know which preservatives are best for you. They know how much rat hair should be in peanut butter and rat poop should be in peanut butter. They know what the acceptable amount of that is. They know that China makes really good products and we should keep importing them and filling our landfills. We know all of those things. We have a crisis in confidence. And that's the central theme of, I believe, what's really, really wrong with the United States of America. We can't believe the media. We can't believe the talking heads on the big screen, in the little screen. We can't believe anything. We can't believe companies that say lifetime guarantee and then they change their mind. Then we can't believe that products are any good. There's nothing that we can believe. There's a crisis of confidence, top to bottom, left to right. Any comments about that, Rich Scheben?
Oh yeah, we have open treason, fraud, racketeering, sedition. We haven't mentioned today the several coups against President Trump. We haven't mentioned today that 93% of all the information on the mainstream media about President Trump is negative. And until these declassifications occur, and I really believe from my reading and research that that's why we have Russia, Ukraine, Stormy Daniels, the fake P dossier, COVID-19, pandemic. It goes, the riots under the guise of race relations. It's getting to the point, and here's an article right here. I believe in the stupidity of the stock market. This is on the top of Zero Hedge right now. I'm putting money back into the stocks because I'm going to bet on stupid. That basically sums up what's happening today because everything is illegitimate. I mean, we have the Bureau of Land Statistics creating purposeful miscalculations on small business startups in May. We have banks no longer required to have cash on hand. I'm not making this stuff up, by the way. And the bond market is 4 times larger than the stock market. Well, we know what the yield is in the bond market. It's little to nothing. That's why one of the reasons we're recommending go out and buy 20 to 40 acres right now. Have a garden. Go back to the basics. Food, water, shelter, energy. Start thinking outside the box. Start living outside the box. Everything is corrupt. Everything is set up so the elites get bailed out. So their malinvestment is hedged, is covered. And we, as little people, we don't even get protection rights or restitution under the rule of law. We, because we're infighting each other are literally protecting the most corrupt countries, companies, and industries in this country. We're literally destroying everything that made us great and enforcing fraud by giving these companies liability immunity, just like Vince mentioned with Monsanto.
Rich, how about, by the way, the reason that we've been talking over each other is we have a huge delay today. I apologize for stepping on you, but the delay was over 2 seconds. I just want to tell you that's why. But here's something that's just absolutely reprehensible. NewTimes.com. The Trump administration, that would mean President Trump's administration, is going to make it easier for hunters to kill Alaska bear cubs and wolf pups. Here's what they're doing. This is sick. Hunters will soon be allowed to venture into national parks in Alaska and engage in practices conservation groups say are reprehensible. Baiting hibernating babies, bears, from their dens with donuts to kill them using artificial light as headlamps to scurry wolf dens into slaughter. That's what they're doing, or they're going to do. The final rule that's expected to be published today in the Federal Register, the Trump administration will end a 5-year-old ban on the practices, which include shooting swimming caribou from a boat and targeting animals from airplanes and snowmobiles. This is sick. Who thinks this stuff up? How about the animals?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, how about the animals having, equal rights? And they round up, politicians. And if the animals could fly, how about they shoot politicians from the air and snowmobiles? This is crazy in my world. It's not a fair fight. It's a slaughter. Why? Scheben? You have a comment?
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Vince?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely something wrong with our phones. Anyway, first of all, I want to say, because I'm a hunter, 85% of what I harvest is with a bow and arrow. There has to be, that's why we were always called sportsmen. Now, I don't know the whole story about what you just said. I try to verify and read and research a lot of things, because a lot of stories are to create an agenda and to create division. Now, that being said, it's just like down south, there's a lot of hogs that are overpopulated and do a lot of damage to land and get rid of the indigenous animals, and they have to shoot them from helicopters, even though it's not technically sportsmen, but they have to cull the herd in a way. Now, I am definitely not for hunters, if you're a sportsman, to shoot cubs in dens or caribou in water and stuff like that. When I went caribou hunting years ago somewhere in northern Canada, it's illegal to shoot them from a boat. Now, I think it depends on if you're a native or not. There's different rules and laws for different people. I don't agree with them. But let me talk to you about one of the first animals you mentioned was wolves. In Montana, we have a problem with wolves that were brought in who are non-indigenous, oversized, trapped from the northern continent of North America, mostly in Canada. So basically we had a herd of 20-plus thousand elk that would migrate out of Yellowstone every year. And Montana families, poor families, would harvest a certain population to keep it in check so they could feed their families. Well, now, and see how I'm connecting the dots here, so please stick with me. Now, the super wealthy have been buying up so much of Montana, and these non-indigenous oversized wolves are killing the game around smaller communities like western Montana who are trying to feed themselves, and between access and less game because of these non-indigenous wolves being put in here via our tax dollars, a lot of young Montanans unfortunately, now this is a per capita number, we're number one for suicides and meth. So we're losing our heritage, our tradition, our culture, because certain powers that be are giving lots of access to the super wealthy to hunt on private land, but not allowing the little people to do it on public land because so much has been taken away by, again, these non-indigenous oversized wolves. So I'm just saying that there's a story behind a story behind a story. And the powers that be are doing everything to eliminate our freedoms, our liberties, our rights, our ability to be self-sufficient, our ability to control our own destiny, our ability to eat organic, non-GMO food. And this is why 96% of Monsanto shareholders voted to non-disclose GMO ingredients. This is the manufacturer of glyphosate. We need to go back to giving the power to the people. That's why I voted for President Trump, because he said he was going to give the power back to the people. And he's doing some good things, but he's surrounded by so many traitors and cowards, I don't know what he's going to get done. Vince?
Okay, so this National State Park Service officials said that they're going to allow on 6 national parks hunting with artificial light. That means hunting at night. They're going to allow hunting black bears with dogs. And they're going to allow hunting bear with bait. Bait. That's entrapment. That's like when the police encourage someone to break the law and then they arrest them for breaking the law, that the police encourage them to break the law. Can you imagine? It seems sick to me. It seems sick to entrap wild animals with technology and kill them. It seems crazy to hunt babies, baby animals. It seems wrong to me to do that, but yet our government is going to allow it. It's crazy.
Let me pose a different, because that's what the show is about. It's information. It's taking different perspectives. Now, as a bow hunter, if you're bow hunting, see, the problem is they allow rifle hunters to bait for bears. And they should probably say, okay, well, if you're a bow hunter and you're shooting 35 yards max, maybe you could be allowed to, but not a gun hunter that can shoot 300 yards. And there's also another argument in states that do have, Montana does not allow bait for bear, okay? But there are arguments that I've heard of states where they can choose they can be picky on the bear they shoot. They don't shoot, a sow. If a sow with cubs come in, which is illegal to do, they can see it close up and not several hundred yards in the brush where they don't see the baby bear. They can pick a boar, which is a male. They could, so there are arguments to both from the sportsman's perspective. I don't disagree with you at all, but there are connecting dots and different perspectives for often the right reasons that don't get shown to light as well.
We need term limits. 1 term, 2 years, you can serve and you're out. Not given enough time to accept bribes and payoffs and make deals. 2 years and you're out. All positions. We'll be right back. Rich Scheben's with us. Rich, I received an email. I'd like to read it. It's very short, just 1 paragraph. And I announced that I have a temporary email address that's active right now. So if you feel like you want to send me an email, don't send me any junk, please. I'll keep it up for a while, and if I get beat up, I'll just shut it back down again. So it's instructor, INSTRUCTOR, instructor at usaprepares.com. usaprepares.com. Here's the email. I received it yesterday. Vincent, I've been a faithful listener for several years. I was looking for an email address to contact you on different issues over the years. When I heard on Monday's show about the temporary email, I just want to say thank you for your program. Although I may not agree with every statement you make regarding the countless issues discussed on USA Prepares, a majority of the times You've provided me with your wit and insight, which I truly appreciate. Thank you, Vincent. Regards, Joe in Canada. Joe, thank you so much for that email. And if you keep listening, you'll probably start to agree more and more with every statement I make. I'm just kidding. But we are in a crisis here in the United States of America. And just to prove that point, on Fridays we've been doing broadcasts about, how to fix your appliances, do-it-yourself, money-saving tips with Kathy and Kevin. Great broadcast, in my opinion, in terms of information for how to do it, right? Roughly 1/3 of the comments we get, or the thumbs up, thumbs down, roughly 1/3 thumbs down. Can you imagine? That's how sick, how stupid, how insensitive, how callous, how me-first people are. Look, if you don't like listening to USA Prepares, do everybody a favor. Don't listen. Don't listen. But people can't stop listening. They're addicted to it. And they're addicted to beating us up for everything we say. Every day, every single day, people beat us up. I just checked it, just to see what was happening over the last couple of months. Every day, people beat us up. We're just a bunch of volunteers. People don't like it. They don't like what we have to say. They're sick puppies. They really are. Rich Scheben?
Well, Vince, I got news for you, buddy. You're ranked number 3 for GCN, 2 behind Alex Jones, and we don't have 1/100th of his resources. And I like Alex Jones. I think I've gleaned a lot of articles from him. He's very accurate in a lot of ways. He knows a lot of information. He has great guests. But as with all people who are sticking up for the little guy, the bottom 93%, who are uncovering and connecting the dots of corruption and manipulation, who are teaching self-sufficiency, we will always be demonized, discredited, and delegitimized by the bots, by the paid trolls, okay? Because the powers that be have an addiction to power, money, and control. So when we don't stick up for the elite, which we don't, and stick up for the little guy, we will be demonized, discredited, and delegitimized. That's the way it's always been. And with today's technology, now you got to keep in mind, folks, these are the same people who want to take your jobs with robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence, known as the technocracy. So,
Rich, here's something very, very upsetting. I'd just like to say this before we end the broadcast. dailymail.co.uk. Ohio student, 22, dies 2 days after being tear gassed and pepper sprayed by police at George Floyd protest. Sarah Grossman, 22 years old, died May 30th after being found non-responsive at home 2 days prior. Her family said that she participated in the protest in Columbus, Ohio. She was tear gassed and pepper sprayed and died. 22 years old. So the police admitted that they pepper sprayed and tear gassed the protesters. They admitted it. So here's a young gal, very young, hasn't reached the prime of her life. Now, what would you say that was? Well, just a casualty of protest? Or would you say that is second-degree murder? I'd call it second-degree murder. There are images of young people, like less than 10 years old, being pepper sprayed in the face by the police. Now, can you say that the parents aren't responsible by bringing their children to a protest? Why shouldn't parents bring children to protests to see what's wrong with this country? And then the police respond by pepper spray in the face of children? This is sick beyond comprehension. That's what America's angry about. It's angry about these kinds of activities that have been going on for a long time. And when they say non-lethal, that's nonsense. Rubber bullets have poked out eyes and killed people. So is pepper spray. So is tear gas. And you are paying for it. Rich Scheben, very quickly, your comments.
Boy, with the music playing, Vince, I think I'm going to call it a day. I want to thank you for letting me exercise my First Amendment right. And folks, we have to fight for the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody, because if we don't, we will be divided and conquered for good. Thank you for being
that
here.
means the cops don't get away with it. That means you don't get away with it either. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. How about bringing back, an eye for an eye? That might work. Rich Scheben, thanks so much for being with us today.